today's event with a toast to 2019, all of the adventures, creativity, and community. We are so grateful. So, to 2019.
Spill.
Now on to business. Creative Mornings today would not be able to happen without all of these lovely ladies and our volunteers. So I want to give a huge shout out to our leadership team.
I'll make it click. I got it.
Just casually, thank you. Erica, Natalie, Caitlin, and Heather, and all of our day of volunteers, Chelsea, Jen, and Amanda. Thank you guys so much. Also, this couldn't happen, period, without our global partners, MailChimp and WordPress. And fun fact, this is just being cute. These global sponsors have made it possible that we have Creative Mornings in 207 cities, 65 countries, with over 20,000 attendees a month and almost 8,000 talks online. It's huge. We have an awesome community. Oh, now it's working. Great.
I'm doing it.
Oh, nice. So thank you to our lead sponsors, Herman Miller and Echo Studios, for their continued support. Thank you, thank you. Also, thank you, Ferris, for the caffeine and brand new day one canned tea. My mind is blown. I'm a huge tea connoisseur, so that's amazing. And to Boxed Water for all of the hydration. And to our icebreakers, Spark, Mighty in the Midwest, Atomic Object, Conduit, Tech Systems, UICA, and LaFleur Marketing. Thank you so much. And to all of our amazing creative partners, Germination Labs with the social media support today, Leanne with the photography, AB with the sick tunes, and Carbon Stories for helping us live stream and do videography today. Thank you so much. And to our host, The Comedy Project with the coolest space, I want to invite Joe up here to talk about the space a little bit.
All right, thanks. Hey everybody, welcome to the Comedy Project. Glad you guys are here. As I always say, we're glad you're here for this, but we hope to come back to a bunch of other stuff. We've only kind of been open for like 4 or 5 months. We've kind of been in a weird soft open stage for like 8 months. So everything here we all did. There's like a team of about 6 of us, and like nothing was here. Other than the beautiful ceiling, nothing was here. Bathrooms, walls, floors, stage, nothing. We just have been kind of building it all and chipping away at it. We finally, about 5 weeks ago, got a liquor license. It's great, yeah. There's definitely one person here who came to the very first time we launched our training center classes. We've had about 100 people taking like improv and comedy writing classes and comedy performance classes here. And the very first batch of people who came into that first class were seriously walking into a construction zone. Like, I don't know if we had our occupancy permit, but it's been great. It's been a great journey. So my background is I used to work and tour and teach in Second City for about 3 years, and a lot of what we're doing here is a lot like that. So we have improv and sketch comedy shows. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday are kind of our bigger shows. Friday and Saturday at 8 o'clock are our sketch comedy shows. It's called the Polar Vortex Express. It's a very fun sketch comedy show. And then we have late night shows Fridays and Saturdays at 10 o'clock. And we have a cast of about 20 people that are kind of revolving around doing different shows. But we have lots of different shows. So we have the sketch shows, but then we also have, on Mondays, we have Comedy Outlet Mondays, which is kind of this experimental comedy night that, 10 years ago, we started Dog Story when Dog Story wasn't downtown, and then it moved. We brought the Comedy Monday show here when we opened this, and that's every Monday for $6, 7 o'clock. You can see just about anything, or if there's that show that you've been writing about, what it's like living your life, that's where you would put that show up. And then again, like the late night improv shows we have the It's 420 Somewhere, which is an improvised stoner comedy. We have the VIP show where we interview people. We've done people like Trevor from Madcap. We've done both recent mayors, the Kent County coroner, Pastor Bell when he was around, Suzanne Gia from Wood. So that's a fun show as well. We also do one called the Sellout Show where we literally auction the show off on eBay. And if you're the highest bidder, we do the show about you. Yeah, so there's a lot of fun stuff going on here. We actually were just talking to AV about how we've been wanting to do a show, an improvised show with a live DJ underscoring the show as it goes too, and so hopefully that'll happen in 2020 as well. We're really glad you guys are here today, and I'll turn it back over and have a great time. Thanks.
Our theme this month is silence, and it was chosen by our Montevideo chapter and illustrated by Danny Sharf. I am so excited to introduce our speakers today. Quynh and Ben, the owners of Stock and Candor, have worked for decades in restaurants, and they were finally ready to begin a project that was truly their own, which was how Stock and Candor was born. Quynh and Ben are cooks who are passionate about eating, drinking, in the world of hospitality. Help me welcome Ben and Quynh up here.
We just want to say thank you to, first of all, Natalie for connecting us with Creative Mornings. We had never really heard about it before, and obviously it's a really cool community of people to hang out with, so we're just really thankful to be here. Emily for kind of helping us gather our thoughts, because we're a bunch of scatterbrains, and it's not great all the time. And for just the comedy project for hosting and Creative Mornings for putting this on. It's really fun as cooks to kind of get out of the kitchen and do something. It's mildly terrifying because normally we're hiding behind like pots and pans, and now we have to stand out. But it's really fun and exciting. It's a good challenge for us, so thank you again.
I'm Quynh, and this is Ben. We work at a few places in Grand Rapids. Our main place is Reserve Wine and Food, and then some mornings I work at Luis O. Butcher. He works part-time at Sylvangard. And then we also have this project that we do together called Stock and Candor. I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area, from a city called San Jose, and sorry. I just need to calm down. Okay, I come from like two very loving but very strict Vietnamese parents. My family is humongous, and we're scattered all around the world because of how abrupt the Vietnam War ended. So we are a family filled with restaurateurs and professional chefs. And my mom is a Vietnamese caterer. And basically we're all just a bunch of like strongly opinionated eaters. And we're just, I wasn't expecting a laugh, sorry. Totally threw me off. So we're just like, you know, a family where like food is life. It's how we express communicate to each other. And it's just that extra language that we use to talk to one another. But even as important as it is in our lives, when it came time for college, my family wanted me to get out of the business, to attempt to have an easier life that was a little bit more financially stable. So I went to study, and during that time I got to actually expand on other hobbies that I had. One of them being dance. This is Miss Yelia. She is the badass. You recognize that? Like, that's her latest video. Anyways, at one point I was able to run a hip hop crew with my best friend. We did that for almost 5 years, and that was a ton of fun. I also developed more passion into things like snowboarding and yoga, and that was kind of like my mental break. And it's like things that kind of humble me and remind me that I don't have, I'm a small person in a very big world. But my break away from the restaurant didn't last very long. When you're a student, you have sporadic schedule, so the restaurant industry is a great way to be able to work and pay your bills and still go to school. So I was a server for 12 years and at a couple of restaurants in San Jose, and then I was a bartender for 14 years in the San Francisco nightclub scene. Oh, thank you. And then eventually I was going down a path that wasn't very productive and kind of toxic. So I had to my plan was to move away for about 3 months tops. And 8 years later, I'm still here. And I'm happy to say that I left to try to focus and try to reset my brain to this new career that I was starting. School was marine biology, and after I got my degree in there, it just wasn't fitting, and I went back to what I know, which is food. So I've been able to develop those skills and learn a lot about the business, and surprisingly and very happily, I met a guy during this entire process, and that's Ben.
I'm glad it'd be a distraction. Yeah, so I'm Ben, the other part of Stock and Candor. Like she said, we work at other restaurants, so Reserve and Stone Guard. But I have like a little different story. I was born in Korea, but I was adopted when I was really young, like 5 months old, to a really nice, loving family in Battle Creek. So I grew up kind of having like the Midwest life. So we went to church every Sunday and Sunday night and Wednesday night and stuff like that. Yeah, so it seems like some people know what I'm talking about. So my mom, my dad, I have an older brother, we had 2 cats, a dog. It was just like the, white picket fence kind of thing. My parents are just great people, and they taught me a lot about hard work and integrity and compassion. So during high school, it was all about getting to college and doing well and having your extracurriculars and your, a really high GPA so you can get a scholarship. So I did all that. Got to college, was studying to be an engineer because I'm super nerdy and I love that stuff. But like most people in college are broke and I needed a job. So I started working in a kitchen, and that was when this just crazy idea of like, man, maybe I should like do something that I actually love instead of things I'm really good at. And so the kitchen was just one of these places where I felt incredibly unqualified and kind of like just that I wasn't really that good at it, and I was kind of behind the 8 ball time-wise, but I really loved it. And so that's been kind of this journey. I dropped out of college to just pursue this career as a cook and just to follow my passion.
Do we have any people who have ever worked in restaurants before? Whoa, okay, cool. Have any of you ever worked in a kitchen? Right on, awesome. Cool. So our next scene, you'll totally understand, you'll totally get. But for anyone who hasn't been in the restaurant industry before, when we were given the subject of silence and we were trying to come up with the storyline on how to present today, we noticed that our definition of silence is probably very different from the average person. So here we have a clip from a movie called Brunt, and it's just to give you an idea of what we consider a silent and very obedient kitchen.
True customers, lane 40s, half a bottle of wine. One tastes that, one a la carte. Then each is one place a fork on the floor. They're here. what we do, and we do it together. Yes, Chef.
So boys, table 9, 1 taste, 1 scalp, follow 1 toast lamb, 1 halibut. Yes, chef.
So that was just a little window into everyday work at a working professional kitchen. So you notice it's fairly noisy. There are these huge, loud fans that are above you. Usually I'm deaf, but like at the same time, nobody's speaking. There's a lot of noise, but it's all white noise at that point. And whenever someone does speak, it's direct, it's concise. And everyone has to be able to hear it, and that's why we don't speak. Often I joke that I have forgotten, and I'm showing it right now, I've forgotten how to speak because I've been in a kitchen for over 10 years, and it's just like the muscles forget how to move. The brain's going, I swear to you, I'm thinking, but like, this is not, it's like dragging along the sentence, and I'm obviously struggling.
Okay, so that was kind of like an obviously dramatized version of what we do, but just a little bit about our background together. So in 2013, Quynh and I started working together at a sushi bar in Grand Rapids. We both had a super strong passion for food, obviously, and hard work ethic, and we kind of noticed that right away. And so we would like throw dinner parties on our days off just to like practice a dish, or we were like, spontaneously like, I really want to eat like curry today, like let's make curry. So we'd have like invite a bunch of people over and just have a little party. And in the restaurant professionally, we were kind of moving our way up. People had kind of taken notice of, the skills that we had to offer. And so within a pretty short period of time, we were both promoted to head chefs, and we both moved across the state to help open up restaurants for this group. So we had more responsibilities. We were training staff. We were ordering food. We were just kind of taking care of like the business side of these restaurants. But as we were moving up, we kind of started to feel like this little cat. So just starting to outgrow the place you're in a little bit. So, we were growing and the restaurant just kind of wasn't growing, at least in the same way that we were. And so we started to feel a little bit confined, just trying to, do something more creative, more ourselves, something with our soul in it instead of kind of working for someone else. The jobs we had were really financially stable, and they were pretty comfortable in terms of like a cook, as far as a cook goes, but it just wasn't kind of fulfilling the strive for growth and substance that we were looking for in a culinary aspect.
We just needed a bigger box. So it became evident to us that after some years, there was still a lot of empty promises. Our creativity was stifled. There's a lot of lack of trust even in the smallest decisions. And the constant dismissal finally made us realize that it was an unhealthy and unsatisfying state to be working in. That led to
Yeah, so then we looked for new jobs, basically. We came to a point of like, enough is enough. All these other things just aren't worth it. So what we started to do, we started to look for jobs that had some of the same goals and desires that we did. So we were looking for a kitchen that is doing stuff from scratch with high quality ingredients, with a level of execution that we aspire to be a part of. Also having relationships with farmers and purveyors. Like, the food system is pretty broken. That's a separate topic, but we wanted to be in a place that is in like very close proximity to farms, and so that kind of brings up a seasonal menu and capturing things in the moment while they're happening. Like, it's really nice to enjoy strawberries or avocados or something, but like in the scheme of the world, that's not how things operate usually. And then most of all, we were just trying to be in a place that was pushing the food scene forward instead of being content just kind of doing what you do. And so we found these new jobs, and they had really reignited our passion for cooking professionally. And so we started to refocus our food to something that was more meaningful and thoughtful for us personally. And so that was kind of the beginning of Stock and Candor. And then we had been really fortunate to work with this bottom right picture is kind of our team. And we've just been able to link up with these people who are just as passionate about food and drink and hospitality and just kind of the idea of like being together around a meal as we are. And then when we work at Stock and Candor, we used all these past experiences that weren't maybe so great to help kind of realign our future in the goals that we have.
For instance, one way that we did this was to do what today we labeled as intentional silence. And this was just for, I'm just going to use an example. We worked for an owner who loved to talk. And it was to the point where the conversations would just go on and on and on, and you could never get a word in. And it was kind of like, well, at the beginning of a conversation, you just think like, well, am I just here so you can just hear yourself talk? Are you just trying to make it look like we've actually talked, but no substance has actually come between us? Or do I even have to be here because it feels like it's a one-way conversation? So with those type of questions evolving every time we had a conversation, I had the same feeling, which was I'm not worthy enough to put out words that you will genuinely hear. So when I grew up in a culture and a time where a quiet child is a good child, and that doesn't always mean like, hey, shut up because you're about to embarrass us. Most of the time with my parents, the message was more like, if you can just shut your mouth just for one moment, maybe you can focus this energy towards listening, and maybe you'll be able to realize some opportunities that are in front of you right now that are presenting themselves. And with this background, with Stock and Candor and with our team, we make it a point to, first of all, acknowledge that they are just as passionate, just as knowledgeable as we are in food, drink, and hospitality, just like Ben just said. But many times Ben and I will intentionally stay quiet so that they can get their ideas and their thoughts out into the table too. And we want them to be able to fully express themselves. And this is because we experienced like that, like silence, like a bad silence where it's just like they're telling you to be quiet. And we don't want that feeling to be a part of our group, so we silence ourselves so that they can speak. And most of the time, the ideas that come out are better than what we would come out, and it comes out quicker because we have a group that has, that's on point. They're smart, and ultimately we get things done very quickly and the best that we can be. And nobody feels invalidated.
And so another kind of point of this intentional silence is the way that you speak to people. So I think we've all had a moment of like either a meeting or an email that you just are wondering why you just siphon through a 7-page email for like 2 sentences of actual substance. And just in terms of like in a kitchen, the time is at like a real premium. And so when you talk, you're talking very short. Like, when you walk behind someone, you don't say, oh, oop, let me just slide by you. You just stay behind and then you walk past. That's just a small example, but it's not always about just time and being short. It's about being purposeful and not extravagant. And then also when you are speaking intentionally, one thing is giving yourself a little pause to go from like the input information to the output. So, if you act impulsively and just based on reaction, sometimes you say things that you regret a little bit. There is a time for those things. Like if someone says I love you and you like that might be bad, but in a business decision, it's really good to kind of give yourself some time and say what you want to say and how you want it to present to different people. So that's just another lesson we've kind of learned on the way, and one that we maybe didn't experience in the past, but one we're trying to actively build part of a culture. And I think it's just important in any group dynamic or any really interactions with people that you kind of have this idea of like being able to think logically and kind of give yourself some space.
Another lesson that we have learned is listening to other people's stories. And my example of that is when I'm running a kitchen, if you don't fit into the work ethic and the standard that is being held by the restaurant, you're automatically out. Like I don't have time to like deal with teaching you how to work. But what I learned, especially when I moved to Michigan, was that's a luxurious mentality. Sometimes you work in a place where there's not enough workers to fill in that spot as soon as it's vacated. So, especially with the jobs that we are at now, we work under a chef right now who's probably the most patient chef I've ever worked for. And I watch him figure out the inner workings of each part of each person on his staff, and he and his team ultimately they learn how to mold each person to be productive and to get the work done, basically. And it's been amazing to watch, very inspirational for me, because I'm in someone else's kitchen. I have to be quiet, and I can watch and learn from other chefs and see how they get all their stuff done under the conditions that they are put under. Yeah, this is something I didn't have before and completely valuable. Yeah, I think that was it for this time. Sorry.
Okay, and the last one is really important to me personally, but I think most people can identify with this. So listening to yourself, one of the hardest things for me is definitely this. So in a kitchen, you're working long hours, it's hard work, you're on your feet for 12 to 16 hours a day, it's mentally kind of stressful, it's hot, you're just greasy. And so on our days off, it's pretty understandable that you just kind of like want to veg out and not do anything. Like pretty notorious for like having one day of just kind of sleeping and maybe doing some chores, and then the other day is like more productive. But for me personally, I had a really hard time I kind of have this blend of depressive behavior, and I couldn't discern that from just being tired. So I would sleep all day, I would be like super lethargic even when I got up, or I would kind of like flake out on my friends. Like I'd be like, yeah, I kind of want to go, and then like 6 o'clock rolls around and I would just sit on my couch. And it was pretty bad, and I really struggled with that, but I just kept pushing it down. So I was like, well, if I was just stronger or like better, then I would have more energy to do this. If I was like more seasoned at being tired all the time, then I could do it. So instead of like working less, my idea was to like work more, which is, you know, not the smartest thing. Anyone who knows me knows I'm like an incredibly stubborn person, so if someone tells me I can't do something, including myself, I just like have to try. And so this kind of culminated with earlier this year in March, I had like a really bad episode of depressive behavior. I was not only just like kind of flaking out on friends, I was like missing work, I was lying about where I was going, I was like in a really dark place. I was contemplating suicide and some really just things that I had pushed away for a really long time. And it kind of took admitting to myself. I checked myself into Pine Rest, and that was a really huge moment of like feeling broken and kind of like there's nowhere to run, there's nowhere to hide, there's no like excuses. You know, when you're tired and you can say like, well, I just worked long days, but when you are like in that sort of space, you kind of have to admit some bad things are going on and I need to deal with them before they get really serious. And so that has led me down a path of kind of the self-care and you know, mental health awareness that is like pretty common, but I'm just so stubborn, I didn't really want to deal with it. So some things that I was learning was like how to be mindful and silent, so letting moments pass as individual moments, you know, you don't have to like jump on the train even though it's running by you. That was a big one, and just learning some like physical coping skills, like how to relax efficiently and like in a way that makes sense for people. So like if anyone's done box breathing, is that a thing? Anyone?
Oh yeah.
Okay, you like, you know, you hold your breath for 3 seconds and then let it out. Things like that. And then just kind of admitting to yourself like what are real obstacles that you have. Like that it's just so hard sometimes to like discern what is the outside world telling you and what is your own, you know, personal soul kind of going at. And it's something I'm still working on all the time, but I couldn't be more happy to have gone down that road just to figure out how to change. You know, I don't wish it upon anyone, obviously, but just it's one of the reasons that I've found a lot of passion behind this particular topic. Was I had been silent for a really long time and in denial a really long time about what was really going on. And I kind of made it my vow for this meeting that like if anyone had felt like that for any moment in time, that I want to make sure that you know it's okay to like not be okay, and to take steps to help yourself. Yeah, that's it.
So we just, all of this is just where we are in this one moment. There's a lot of stuff that this presentation helped make us aware of, and a lot of stuff where we're like, man, I wish we had figured this out like 20 years ago. And there's still, we continue to learn, we continue to have much more lessons to be learned. This was an opportunity to kind of pay homage to Anthony Bourdain. If you're not familiar with him yet, he was a good chef, and he, unlike me, had a great way with words. And he had these shows, and everything he said just seemed real, and you can connect with him. And one of his quotes that we have held on to for a very long time, we actually have a Lazy Susan that our friend engraved this in for us, is that you learn a lot about someone when you share a meal together. And that fits in with what we do. We're cooks. We're out there to create a space so that people can come together and learn about each other where they are at the moment, just for one meal, and then you can like get up and do it again later if you want, or not. Yeah, he's just gone through a lot of stuff that we have gone through, and we feel connected to him, so we wanted to remember him. And that is the end. Yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ben and Quynh, for sharing your story. We have about 10 minutes for Q&A, so yeah, what questions do we have? I have to yell too, because this isn't working.
My favorite dish is anything that has intention to it. Like I love cooking after learning about someone and like focusing and if I can, I'll try to make it special, and if I achieve it, that's like, whoo, that's like a whole other like level for me. For me.
I think my favorite food is probably anything like pickled or fermented, because I think it's sort of cool. You're turning like, normally it's kind of like crappy stuff, and then you let it just kind of get weird. So it's like lazy, but it's really awesome. It's like transformative, right? You're like letting something just kind of sit and change, even though you don't have to do anything to it. It's kind of cool.
Any questions?
Yeah, can you talk to us about the meaning behind Stocking Candor and how you came up with that name?
Oh yeah, I always forget that.
So when we were starting our project and we were trying to get out of kind of dinner parties at our own apartment and kind of branch out, we obviously needed to brand ourselves some way to kind of stand out. And so we were just trying to think of things. And so Stock and Candor kind of is our play on words. So from a food standpoint, stock is like what you make in a kitchen. It's like the first class you take in culinary school. It's like the foundation of any good kitchen is like how to make good stock. So we thought that was kind of a key point in terms of a culinary aspect, and then also to take stock in something is to like, you know, have trust in it, have faith in it, and then candor is to be truthful and authentic. So those were the values that we really wanted to put onto the plate, is that it's food that we really like and we value, and like we don't really make food that we don't want to eat, kind of thing. So I think that's a lot where the name came from.
And a lot of the food that we make is food that we crave and we can't find in Grand Rapids, or at least at the spice level or the right balance that we grew up with. So when we figure it out, sometimes it's brand new dishes that we're figuring out. When we do figure it out, it's something we want to share with everyone who's interested, kind of thing. So that's why we're kind of like, we try to keep it underground, because we found through our experiences in some of the restaurants that the demand isn't there. So we didn't want to like all of a sudden like open up a restaurant that had that could fit 100 people. We just, right now we want to keep it like nice and tight and intimate and special.
Yes. Can you talk a little more about how your business operates? Like, what is it you do other than cook?
So our main goal is cooking. So the way that we format our meals is kind of, there's two different avenues. Like, because we're not a restaurant, we're not tied to any one way of doing anything really. So our typical format is like a small intimate dinner, like hosted by various people. We kind of like invade their kitchen and cook a meal for them and friends or strangers or whomever. So we have a staff, we kind of have like a front of house person while we're cooking. We can't be out with the table, so we have a person like that. We have a bartender and then a server, and then we all kind of overlap a lot and help do that. And then we also have what we call like our social things, where we'll like be in a public space and it's more like open to everyone and a more community kind of driven event. And then we've also mildly regrettably done weddings. And we've also, in October, we did the late night street food at Stovengard, which was pretty cool. So we kind of do everything. I'm not sure if that answers the question.
Yeah, it's hard to put out because the last year we've done so many different things, and when someone puts out an idea, we try to assess like, are we capable of doing something like of challenges, but we're still trying to figure ourselves out, what we're capable of doing. The dinner party thing, I think we got it down, but then like the social at Silverwood, the late night street food thing, that was a different challenge than from the wedding, from whatever else we were doing at the time. Yeah. Do that.
What have you found learnings or just your experience with the Grand Rapids food scene? You said you've been here 8 years, you're from Battle Creek, we're obviously with a bunch of creative individuals. You know, how has it evolved over the time you've been here, and you know, being able to just kind of infuse your own kind of cultural food into it as well?
So at one point I was running a kitchen and on the west side, and we had a guy come in yell at us that you are going to fail. You don't have burgers. There's nothing on this menu I would eat. So you guys are not going to make it, you know. And first of all, that's what? Like, who does that? Like, just don't sit down. Like, what is this? So there was that extreme, and then there was like people who we worked with, like fellow food lovers that we were surrounded by, who were like, yeah, we're gung-ho about us, we're all about your food, we love your food. So I guess we're still figuring it out. Like, we know people want this food, but we don't know how big that population is. And by doing stuff like this, we meet more people, because typically our lives are very like small. Our bubble is super small. It's home, work, home, you know. We have 3 jobs, so I guess it's kind of like 3 works, but it's still not, you know, like, I've never met anybody in here before except for Jay. You know, so doing stuff like this helps us kind of like figure out like what is going on. It's been 8 years, but I feel like I still don't know. I still don't even know the streets, you know. Just how do I get from home to work, and that's it. Right? Do you have any other things to that?
This is probably an unpopular opinion, but I think a lot of Grand Rapids restaurants fall to the trap of wanting to be what everyone wants, which is obviously from a business standpoint makes a lot of sense, right? But there are restaurants that are kind of like dying on the hill, being the first ones who are being like, we're not gonna do this, we're not gonna be the same restaurant, we're gonna be different. Because I think if you just like close your eyes and like imagine like, okay, there's a restaurant, it does like, you know, braised chicken and has burgers and does this, like, that could be like a million restaurants in Grand Rapids, and there's not ones where it's like, if I named off like these 3 dishes, you would know exactly what I'm talking about. And there are a few, like those are probably our favorite restaurants, are those types of ones that are like, we're gonna do what we wanna do and make no apologies, like take no prisoners kind of thing. But that's really hard because you're balancing like a business and like people's livelihood and stuff, so there are some concessions to be made, definitely. I think it's just as Grand Rapids grows, like the restaurant scene is growing, but at some point it will just change, maybe not grow, but different concepts will come up, and I think that will be good for the scene.
What are each of your favorite 3 restaurants that you don't work at?
With no affiliations.
Zoko, definitely. Yeah, quality is there. That gin book with all the gins in it, oh, it's so delicious. I know they're there. You already work at Silverwood. Oh, okay. Like pho, and like maybe 2 other dishes like miso, like specific Vietnamese dishes. I go to Pho 99, which is also called Asian Palace, for the flavor. But when I want to feel like I'm back at home again, I go to Pho Sop Chang, because that's like the typical pho house where it's like the family's running it, the daughter's running up and down the aisles yelling, "I am a monkey!" and like Vietnamese. That like, you know, the environment is everything for me, and that hits home to me.
Yeah, I'd say my favorite restaurants are probably Zoko, Fun 99. I like La Vencedora, which is like a taco place on Division. If anyone hasn't been. Oh yeah. They're only open Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
They make their own tortillas from scratch.
It's real good.
Just delicious food.
What was the name?
La Vencedora. So during the week, it's a convenience store, but if you go down the side street, there's a little restaurant in the back, which you know it's good when there's a restaurant in the back of anywhere. So it's good.
I like Marcona. I know there's more. I'm just blinking right now. Up here. Toss me down there. I'll be normal. This is crazy. My heart wants to like.
We have time for one more question.
Yeah.
So I'm 30 in culinary school. I have a corporate job, and I really resonated with what you said about doing something you're good at and passionate about. And I've done a very brief stint at a kitchen, and it was overwhelming and so different from corporate world. What kind of advice would you give somebody who's and terrified and trying to pursue food?
So I walked into kitchens with no experience, but I always loved learning and kind of studying and practice. Like I love the discipline of it. So and I'm also super competitive, so I just hate when people know more than I do. So that was like one thing, like there'd be people who maybe had more skill than I did, but I was like, but I can be super book smart and just kind of like use my strengths to like help kind of lower the gap, I guess. And then I would, like when I first started, I would like practice at home, like cutting stuff all the time, which, you know, is like kind of a weird thing to do. After a long day of work, you just like keep working. But that was what I did to kind of like catch up to speed, because I felt super behind from everyone. I'd say the other thing is like learning how to not be in the way is like pretty useful if you're new. Like you don't want to be that person. You're better off being like not noticed than being noticed for something like that person was always in the way. I think. I don't know if that's really helpful. That's kind of discouraging.
I completely agree with that. But also have a realistic viewpoint of what a kitchen is. I feel like most culinary students come in with like this Food Network vision, and it makes sense. That's what's out there for you to see. And then now we have Chef's Table, where it's kind of like beautifully done and artistic, and it is. It's a beautiful subject, but the reality is when you're in a kitchen, you put your head down, you're quiet, you work, you focus, you stay patient. If you're new to the kitchen and you're like anxious, just be quiet, and you'll learn from other people's mistakes, and like just take note. Every kitchen is a little bit different. It's ran differently, dependent on the leader, on the chef. So you'll notice when chef like doesn't like something or doesn't like that, and just kind of like take it in. Like I would suggest being quiet, take it in, and then when it's your time to shine, you will have a moment where it's like, I know the answer to that, or I know I can do that, and I can do it well, and then that's when you like pipe up. So I can do it, chef, and you'll be safe. You'll be good.
Well, thank you both so much for all of the food talk and your stories. Let's give Ben and Quynh another round. menu this month so much. Thank you to all of our sponsors. And we will see you next year.